Minerals are one thing, oil's another. Everybody's like, oh, oil. It's not about the oil. It's another grow zone on the equator.
I was going to
And if
say
they
that.
can get our American companies down there, like John Deere and all these things, get all the seed supply, all the tractors, that place could just crank again 2 crops per year. And then if you go right over through Colombia, and then if they put roads and railroads and oil pipes through the Darian Gap, that 50-mile stretch that doesn't have any infrastructure down there, look at the sea. Everything could be grown in Venezuela, and eventually there'd be enough pipelines going along there where they could take it by pipeline. If we control that, then you got all the oil and gas. But then you need to think about the agriculture there too, where if our grow zones go offline or get diminished like they are now because of these cold weather patterns returning through our Midwest grow belt in Canada up to Alberta, even if those fail or decrease by 20%, 30% production, it won't matter. We can just move that production down into Venezuela. As we go through this next few days, I did want to read from the book here, Think and Grow Rich. So I just, 2 forms of imagination to frame the year. I guess it's going to be how you frame it. You can get dragged along by the news the whole entire year, or you can just kind of reframe and go, wait, I'm going to focus on something different right in here to bend the hologram in front of you to something of your own, well, imagination. Not somebody else is locking you down somewhere. Break free. See you later. Synthetic imagination and creative imagination. Arrange concepts, ideas. That's synthetic. Square goes here. Square peg, round hole. Creative is quite a different thing. Direct communication with infinite intelligence, I guess, is the best way to put it. Now you're reaching out to that infinite intelligence. Can you meld and mesh with it to have something from that ether appear in the third dimension right in front of you is the question. Thought creates reality. That's how I wanted to start the show. That's how 2026 should flow. So write some, thanks for letting me ramble on the intro there. Got a few slides for us tonight, food pyramid, and welcome everybody to the Civilization Cycle podcast live radio show every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. We're streaming off Rumble first. We're heading over to X.
The technology that's coming out. I'm sure you saw the whole Venezuela, whatever going on. But what most of the world doesn't know is for the first time in history, an entire battle was done probably, I'm going to estimate at 80 to 85% AI. So they took drones and all kinds of intelligence. They had some, other things flying around, manned aircraft, but they simultaneously hit over 1,000 targets in under 5 minutes. And this was done through AI and drones. So just like we predicted over in the Western Hemisphere, a whole little battle overnight was over in the morning. It all took place overnight with just AI. I mean, not to diminish the people involved, the actual people, because there were, but most of those targets, boom, drones hit them.
Going to come out swinging and say, whoever dominates AI dominates the planet, right? Whoever's got the strongest military, the biggest bat, the biggest gun is going to win. It's always been like that, always has been. Cannons giving the advantage. It's been like this through history, the strongest. I don't care if you go back 5,000 years with armies marching through the Middle East, or if you're up to today or World War II. I don't care. Whoever has strongest armies, biggest guns, the most power that can crush somebody and make them bend to your will, that is, there's been this constant flow on the planet. And because it's all from AI, I would like to throw you a quick article on the phone here. Data center, this is off Zero Hedge, which just came in today. Data centers were 40% of all the electricity auctioned and sold to PJM, which is a power provider in sort of Central East down from Ohio. Capacity cost at the last auction. So get this. Data centers bought $6.5 billion worth of out of the $16.4 billion. 40%, that amount of went in away from the consumer into the data center. If you're over 40 and planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. Here's a question most people never ask. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? Many investors in their 40s and 50s discover they have little to no exposure to precious metals. That means their savings are largely tied to markets, policies, and paper assets with very little protection if conditions change. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you've already built becomes just as important as growing it. That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in, helping investors reduce risk by adding physical gold to their portfolios. Right now might be a smart time to talk to noblegoldinvestments.com. No sales gimmicks, no pressure, just a strategy, clear answers built around your goals. That's 2030gold.com. And the January silver bonus, a 3-ounce American Virtues Independent Silver Round, available for new qualified accounts. Building your portfolio for the long term. That's 2030gold.com. Click on that link in the description box below. So we're looking at a war of attrition here too. The data centers and the amount of electricity that needs to be produced to allow this AI to run, because whoever has it dominates. And if you do dominate, then, well, you have more power to do such things that we saw. Just walked on down, took it. Soft power, now it projects around. But it's only possible because of this. So it's 40% of the cost of a major power provider in America. So how much more expensive is our electricity going to get? Do you think, as we run this arms race of, it's not just the shells and tanks and these sort of things any long fighter jets. It's now AI, but it requires a shit ton, excuse my French, a shiton of electricity and resources and water. I mean, right now it's visible to the U.S. public that this is taken away from their, so to say, quality of life. Like, it's noticeable now. The illusion is broken. This is going to be the competitor here. So at what point do people say, the data centers are just taking too much, man? We can't have doubling electricity prices every month because the data centers are auctioning and buying out 80 or 90% of the power. And we're stuck with what's left, digging in for the 10%. Our electricity bills are going up. That's the way it would go if it was unchecked. So without this digital nervous system, as you show there, and then, yeah, it's in the healthcare, it's in this, it's in the policing, it's in this surveillance pricing that I watched this crazy video on how grocery stores are giving you individual prices, especially Instacart, based on what they found to you around the web and their little testing buckets and testing baskets of maximum price giving for a certain item. It's all AI. Corporations have risen their bottom line by 3 to 8% using this kind of pricing, this on-demand dynamic pricing on an individual basis. That all depends on AI. Corporations are going to lose billions and billions that they're ilking out of you and milking you every few cents. They're using digital pricing off AI, and that's all in addition to what the military is using and all in addition to what all the large language models are using and all the businesses are using that as well. Like, it just never is going to end the insatiable demand for power unless we got new power systems. I'm not sure.
Well, I think they're going to, what's going on right now is we're still in the construction phase of this, where the digital nervous system and actual reality with tech and products and ways of living are intersecting. They're still in the construction phase, but that's only to roll it out. They have the technology to have this cinched up, and I can show you, like, with a couple easy diagrams.
And this is the new reactor you might be looking for here. So they're bending the magnetic fields. Now, this is some new power. This is the newest, what we're seeing here of, instead of making something go in a perfect circle, which is much more difficult to control it, allow Schauberger principles to take form, and in the plasma itself adheres to Schauberger principles such as airflow, water flow, and now plasma flow. You think they're, because they're all following the same rules, shall we say, at least to a certain level of how small it can go. So think about this, the same Schauberger principles. So those perfect cylinders like a Saturn. They're not going to be building those anymore. They're building them to look like a roller coaster. And the way Schauberger vortex can spin it in different directions, and it's following its own flow with very little containment needed, because they're just creating or following what it would do naturally. They're not forcing it into a perfect circle, which never happens. It's always following the flow like it would downstream. You never see a straight stream unless we create it with concrete. Now, why would it be any different with plasma? It's not.
I don't know how they're gonna, super juice the technological end of power production. But I know what the power production is on one end of it. This is pretty much what happened over Venezuela, right? Just they turned off all the signals from their equipment. Then they just used this system. So you got the low Earth orbit satellites. They go to the UAVs, and those go down to the Internet of Things. You see that IoT right there? And then from
Mhm.
there, it just goes right into your body.
How much nanodust do you think would help carry that signal, versus zero in the atmosphere versus, I wouldn't say being blanketed, but dusted with it across our planet right now?
I was about to get into that. Actually, I think they have that worked out here. And if you look at this image right here, this is all about the implants that all of the companies want to give you. And in fact, everything is going in this direction. And that brings me back to my point that I was saying. Here's one end of the power generation of this Internet of Things merging of biology and technology system is you are the battery. Just like in the Matrix, you are going to produce the energy needed for these peripherals that they're going to install in everyone's body. And they're just going to roll out into it, especially these brain implants. Neuralink plans high volume brain implant production 2026. But, you know, here it is. It's the smart dust that you've kind of been waiting for here. Look at
My
this.
whole life, Ransom, I've been waiting my whole life.
So, scientists create robots smaller than a grain of sand. And guess what? It's run off of light. And
What
then
do you
you
think
get it.
protons are? Their energy.
Well, and that's what this DARPA generative optogenetics is about. See,
Man,
they already have the technology to intersect these fields of Wi-Fi, 5G, 6G, whatever. All the microwave, all of the peripherals for internet devices, tablets, phones, everything. But it's moving over into the implantation phase, and you don't even have to get these big implants like on that chart. These are smaller than a grain of sand right here, and they run on light, they're fully programmable and autonomous devices. In other words, they can be pre programmed and you can get them any number of ways into your system or into your, say you run one of those giant Bitcoin farms and a plane just flies over and drops this dust and they just infect everything and then they shut it down and they hijack it. This is next level stuff and it's already reality. So what they're going to do is use this whole neural link. That's what it is. Neural link, neural network, everything's about programming your brain. And they're going to use the food to introduce it to you. So you're going to be saturated. They've already done the test runs of, people have been talking about smart dust for a while. They've already been putting it in the products. They know how to track it. And now it's going to be an interactive layer between you and the Internet of Things. And you're not even going to notice this. And this stretches all the
no,
way over into genetics because that's what these robots are for.
oh, wait, Ransom, I was going to say, perhaps the people are, maybe all these allergies and these things that we have going wrong with us are an indication that whatever carbon is not interacting with us correctly, because with cellulose there's only a certain amount you can digest, and that's why food fillers can only go to a certain percentage with cellulose, because after that you'll start to get an upset stomach, indigestion, blockage, these sort of things if it goes over a certain level. They've tested this to the nth degree, and that's why your foods are so much more full of fillers. They're trying to save money, but again, there's
Right.
only as far as you can go before the human really every single person will start to show some sign of it being something wrong with that food. So think about the nano dust and like what's happening with everybody's human bodies here now.
I think the foods aspect of it is just to put you in a state where you're vulnerable to the technology. So the technology is going to come out through the healthcare industry via numerous products, all the way to synthetic DNA. And then that is going to interact with this Internet of Things on basically a cellular level. I mean, these are high tech robots that are the size of a sand. Now, that's quite a bit bigger than your cells and your biology. However, it can be introduced into you different ways, and I don't think you would know it. And when we go back to 2020, we were talking about the possibility that if you had these programmable machines, all you would need is a population that was saturated in a couple of different things to aid this technology to connect and build things literally within you. And all you would need is a super high plastic content. And, we all know that the forever chemicals and plastic saturation is worldwide now. So it's in everything.
It
It's in
is,
you.
right.
And then you needed a content of heavy metals, specifically the kind that you build tech with.
Barium, strontium, aluminum, silver,
I'm just saying now we're at the point where
black, carbon dust, carbon
it's
black,
right. It's not arguable.
hyperconductive graphene.
Yeah. And it's all demonstrated already. You can go look at the videos where
Well, what blockchain is
you,
this going to be running on anyway? That would be interesting to know.
I'm starting to think that we are the blockchain. Like I said,
Yeah,
we're
right.
going to
We're
be
the
the
node.
power source to transition to this other civilization.
I talked
And
about
then,
that back in 2017, saying we were going to be the node eventually. We were,
well, it's here.
and it's here already. That didn't take long. Check.
And then this is another one of on your show. I talked about this a long time ago. How Japan's treaties are done with the people they had treaties with, so they could rebuild their military, and they have a very sophisticated rocket program that they've been using to launch satellites in since what, the late 80s or something like that. They also so happen to have some of the most large amounts of refined uranium and to run their power. Now they can just combine those two, and now they're openly saying we want to put the warheads on the end of our rockets. So that'll change the whole game there in the South China Sea.
Can you click on the Jakarta thing? I want to see if they have any images of Jakarta. On the very top is it Jakarta ranks as the world's. Okay, so that now is the third largest city. Is that right? Slips to third.
Yeah.
Jakarta ranks world's largest city as Tokyo slips to third place. So Jakarta is now the largest city. I don't think, I think that's Japan, that image there. I just wanted to see the images of the cities. That's all I wanted to see.
Oh yeah. Let's see if they got more.
Yeah, so that's Tokyo
No.
downtown. That's
Yeah,
it.
it's Tokyo.
That's all I have.
You get one picture.
Yeah, it's Kyoto News. Yeah, isn't that like such a headline grabber when you get there? It's like one little tiny picture that doesn't even show like the depth and breadth of Tokyo, which is incredible, massive, man. You have no idea how big it is, really. You're like space, you're still looking super close in on that thing. But you think they would have a more like image grabbing picture than the headline grab more than the image. Usually it's the opposite, right?
Yeah, I watched Johnny Mnemonic, and in that movie they were storing, all kinds of data in these little hard drives in their head. And that was 2022. And I remember watching it and telling my kid, look, this is what they thought 2022 looked like. They were just off by a couple of years though. Now we're there, and we're growing brains and robots and brains, combining the two technologies. And then on top of that, the way that we built up this revolution of robotics was mixed with China. So both of us have products in each other's stuff, and they're all worried about Trojan horses.
What about Guns and Butter, man? Guns and Butter. It's all a stage play. It's all a stage show. Guns and Butter and stage play.
And this one's you predicted. right
Oh
here.
yeah, the Arctic route. Well, that was so easy to see, man. They wouldn't spend that much money building all that stuff in the Arctic if they weren't going to put a route up there. Come on now.
Right.
That's like building way out through the deserts out from like New York out to California and going, we're never going to use the road. We're just building it because. Like, what the hell? Come on.
Yeah, right. And this is why we want Greenland, right?
Hmm.
This is the whole Greenland trip right here. This is what it's all about.
It is.
And
Every way to say that. If I could just explain the super simplest thing between China and Russia, the whole Arctic is theirs. They just go back and forth unmolested. The U.S. military is not up there, not allowed up there. It's not any coastal thing there. Even if they're there, they're interfering because they're way on the other side. We got no country, shouldn't even be there. And plus, we don't have the icebreakers. They got massive icebreaker fleets. Russia's been building them. China's been building, and we got like two. We share between the southern hemisphere and the Antarctic, and then three maybe now if they finish one in the shipyard repairing. We got
what I,
nothing.
what I
That's
think,
called the Arctic route for anybody who wants to do more information searching. And that was fully dominated by Russia and China, all that whole, and it cut off all the transit through the Suez Canal, cut all the transit off of anything going through the Panama Canal, and they just went straight across the Arctic versus having to go all the way around the middle of the world, come back through all those choke points, Malacca Straits, all that. They just went right over the Arctic to the end. It was like weeks faster, and I think it was something like 60% of the fuel savings of going the long routes. Now you think we'd leave that unmolested because we're in to save the planet, but of course, I see you're
well, think about it.
hell no.
The only thing between us and Russia is Canada. And almost no one does this, but go on Google Earth and look at the Earth from the perspective of the North Pole, and you realize that Russia and then China. So the United States is like China and Canada is like Russia, and we're just like neighbors, real close to each other in the north. From that perspective, everybody thinks, "Oh, that's way across the world," but it's not. It's just north of us, and that's why we want Greenland. It's no mystery why we're wanting to acquire that, because that would put a stop to basically uh, Russia and China being able to control the pole, because they do at this point. Because the only thing in between us and them is a couple NORAD stations in Canada.
See, this map was in the 1940s. If you don't know, this created by Scott Howard, accessed from the Cornell Library, Technicate of America, 1940. So here's the plan already. And, you talked about Club of Rome, and that was in the 70s. I mean, this precedes that after, like, Bretton Woods is getting put together. And
Right.
this is at that time.
And there's your Colombia and Venezuela, so you
Uh-huh.
can
There's your green.
cinch down the Panama Canal, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'm predicting that in 2026 we're going to have a little issue with China over fishing, is what they're going to call it. So there'll be a bunch of boats on one of the west coasts of the Americas, and then they will run into U.S. Navy, and they're going to have some kind of altercation, and they're going to say it's over fishing. Watch.
Well, you can see up in the north there, if you go north of Greenland to where that empty area is, where the perfect circle is, that's where they're running their ships between China and Russia.
Right.
Like, they're coming right in. There's nothing blocking them. They're just going across, whoosh. But they got this massive fleet of icebreakers to do such a thing. So what that does, it renders that Panama Canal, which used to be like a stranglehold point, useless because our navies couldn't get up there. We don't have the proper icebreakers. Plus, they wouldn't be allowed. Like, what territorial thing? They could get harassed and chased out of Chinese and Russian territory up there. I mean, we got no need to be up there. They'd be like, "What the hell are you doing? Get the hell out! Sorry, you're in our territorial waters." They got that whole Arctic route completely untouched, and no navy at all there's no U.S. control at all in the Arctic Circle.
And
That's the most important thing to remember.
when you look at that map too, just think about this idea of Russians from the north and the Chinese from the west. If you take out nuclear weapons out of the scenario, what you have is a bunch of naval battles and kinetic battles, and they would take place on the west coast of the U.S. and then through Canada from the north. We'd be facing two enemies. So it was in our interest to make sure that we get control of Venezuela and Colombia's waters, and also Greenland. Those are two, must-have things for survival.
I'm going to say another thing that, thank you for everybody who stayed with me for the Adapt 2030 channel. since the beginning around 2014. By the way, on Spotify, check out the Civilization Cycle podcast. Spotify just went over the 600th episode, which used to be Mini Ice Age Conversations, transitioned to the Civilization Cycle. Episode 600 just posted anywhere podcast hosts across the net, but specifically on Spotify, where I was talking about since the beginning of the channel. I was saying, as we get into these food shortages, or at the area where we're going to start rotating into, we can't grow enough crops and it's going to be really noticeable and food prices are going to go up. There's going to be migration and the economy is going to have to shift in the world because it can't survive through this change magnetically. Food driven prices that we're going to go through and have already entered. It's like going through a tunnel. We've already stepped into the tunnel. I was saying there's different bread baskets that were going to be taken at this time. Kazakhstan, Myanmar, the Ukraine and Venezuela. And these are the areas on the planet that could expand their production at least 50%. And right now, as we see it, they're not doing anything with the minerals down in Venezuela. So you got to look at it in a global sense here. They're sitting on some of the biggest mineral reserves on the planet in terms of rare earths, not so much silver. Their mining is not up to snuff, shall we say, and everything is lagging behind. So they're not using their country properly to get that out of the ground, to put it in the supply chain, to satiate the needs for everybody else on this globalized world. So you just got to go down and take it and put it into production. They were keeping it off the shelf too long. Now, minerals are one thing, oil's another. Everybody's like, oh, oil. It's not about the oil. It's another grow zone on the equator.
I was going
to say, if they can get our American companies down there, like John Deere and all these things, get all the seed supply, all the tractors, that place could just crank again 2 crops per year. And then if you go right over through Colombia, and then if they put roads and railroads and oil pipes through the Darian Gap, that 50-mile stretch that doesn't have any infrastructure down there, look at the sea. Everything could be grown in Venezuela, and eventually there'd be enough pipelines going along there where they could take it by pipeline. If we control that thing like we do, let's say Saudi Arabia or Iraq or somewhere in there, those pipelines have been built out. And then, look at BRICS. They're taking pipelines from China all the way to Russia. So would it not be infeasible that we would take pipelines all the way through the existing networks, just reconnect them? Because there's a whole pipeline network in Mexico. There's a whole pipeline network down in Venezuela itself. And then it's through there, there's smaller ones, sections, just connect those. Then you got all the oil and gas, but then you need to think about the agriculture there too, where if our grow zones go offline or get diminished like they are now because of these cold weather patterns returning through our Midwest grow belt in Canada up to Alberta, even if those fail or decrease by 20%, 30% production, it won't matter. We can just move that production down into Venezuela. It's all connected by road. It's all connected by rail. Shit, we could probably do a lot of the stuff cheaper down there. Putting down the warehouses and the drying and the dehydrating and that sort of processing, turn it into milling and flour. The wages will be less down there. Then all that food comes back up to America.
Right.
Yeah. Forget the oil, man. You're looking in the wrong place. If you're looking at the oil, I'm sorry, you're looking in the wrong place. And Ransom, let me throw up a slide that maybe you could talk about. Growing the food on the equator to bring up what we're losing is one thing. But now check out, this is the mineral ore deposits. Silver's not really on this list. But apparently there are silver deposits that have not really been touched or scraped except for like artesian miners and bandits, pretty much going for the veins. Now, this area really hasn't been explored. Where that buffer is, where it says Brazil, that whole area has been, prospectors get killed going in there. It's not an area you go. That's why they have private, I wouldn't say armies, but bands of people with arms going in there to do the gold mining. It's very artesian like that. There's gold. That 4th or 5th one down, you got a bunch of rare earth minerals, but you don't have any silver. But that silver is down there where it says Santa Elena. I can't read that. It's too small. De Ugarian. Down in that area, if you go to the north and east where it's that black where it rises in elevation, that's where the silver's supposed to be. Not even mined or touched. That's the whole thing, is like none of their resources are being utilized to come into the global economy. Hey, we need silver. Dude, you're not even mining any silver. We're going to come down and take your silver out of the ground for you and put it into the global economy because you're not doing it. You're cheating the world. See, this is what's so scary is it's the first act of global governance here coming in to say that We're in a global united world. One world government has just started. You have your resources there, but you're not utilizing for the rest of the planet. Our stock markets, our shareholders, our bondholders, and most of all, our economies and the dominance of the dollar shall reign supreme. And by you not contributing your gold and silver and metals and oil to the American empire, you are defying us. That is like defying the king. I'm coming in to crush the duke.
You could obviously tell that there was some kind of deal for this whole area at the
Coming
equator.
on.
Um, all
Coming
that
on.
happened is we change administrations and a different group is saying we're going to utilize that.
Forcing it to be used.
Well, we
There's no
allowed
agreement
them
here. There's no like, I want to sell you my stuff. We're forcing it at the barrel of a gun.
kind
It's the
of.
first play in world government, man.
I was going to say that before, that whole northern area that's not included in this, in the red lines there, the northern area is all prime farmland.
Huge, huge. They do cattle grazing, they do crops, they do everything.
And I've already
And
heard,
if you look offshore on the oil, if you look at the oil blocks offshore, this is the first act of violent global governance to come out and at gunpoint go, we got more power than you. You haven't put the minerals on. We've asked you a million times. We'd offer you carpets of gold, bro. And you kept saying, no, we're going to come in and those minerals are going to the global market now. You are out of there and somebody shall replace you. That is a global puppet that shall play now. Thank you.